The latest video game war is heating up tonight. Nintendo's GameCube system is about to hit its stores.
We're just waiting for the GameCube to come out. Everybody's so anxious to play with it and everything.
I feel like I was born at a really lucky time. Within 2 years of my birth, we got the release of the PS2, the GameCube, the Xbox, the Dreamcast, and the Game Boy Advance. No question this had to be the most stacked console generation of all time, minus the Xbox. That being said, I grew up playing a lot of games. Games that I still talk about and play to this day, because you cannot replace the classics. I thought that it would be fitting for a first video to show off where I come from in terms of the games that I grew up with. Of course, there's many more games that I played than the ones I'm going to show here, but these are the ones that I think stand out the most. Not necessarily the best games, they're just ones that I find special. So enough yapping, let's get to it. Super Donkey Kong! Donkey Kong Country is sort of a legacy game in my family. It was my older sister's first game, probably my first game, and my parents, who need help using a Roku TV, even they played it back in the day with my sister, and they still talk to me about it. Something about this game is really special. For one, it was probably the most visually advanced game of its time. It was one of the first games that legit looked like the cover art on the box. Super Mario World. Yeah, it looks nice, but it's definitely downsized and simplified. A Link to the Past. Obviously, I don't need to be the one to tell you that this fool doesn't have pink hair on the fucking box. Donkey Kong Country. Oh yeah, now that's what I'm talking about. Aside from the visuals, I think the game also has some amazing sound design and attention to naturalistic thematics. Prior to Donkey Kong Country, the only time people really ever paid attention to Donkey Kong was when he was standing on steel beams and throwing barrels at Mario. Like, who the fuck's idea was this? But now I want you to close your eyes and think to yourself, ape, chimp, jungle, banana. Now open your eyes. Here you were the whole time, at home, the place where Donkey Kong was meant to be. Really though, listen to these tracks and tell me you don't feel like you're just out there in the beautiful nature. Now go buy a composting bin and recycle, you damn dirty polluter.
Morning everybody, I'm hanging out with my friend John. Fox 5 Morning News starts. Look over there. And it starts right now.
I grew up in a humid subtropical region, which means it was hot as fuck and it rained every single day. And don't get me started on the damn mosquitoes, bro. Mario Sunshine was a game that I turned on as a kid just to feel nice and relaxed. All the levels have a really strong island thematic vibe, and there's not a single frame of this game that doesn't make me want to put a pair of cucumber slices on my eyes and lay back under an umbrella. Like, every single level of this game plays into the tropical vacation aesthetic. If there was such a thing, it would probably make a top 5 or a top 3 spot in a Watch Mojo top 10 games with strong setting thematics video.
Court is now in session.
The truth is obvious. The guilty party sits among us.
Oh shit. This game was also kind of like the staple game that all Nintendo kids would talk about when I was a kid. I remember one time my friend came over after school and we just put on Sunshine and played it until we went to sleep, and then woke up the next day and played through the rest of the entire game. We probably talked about the game all week the week before we did that, and then all week the week after we did that. I think it really helps that the game is the most buttery, smooth controlling game from the GameCube. The way Mario moves, it feels like almost any trick that you can think of is possible, and you just gotta go for it. That kind of approach really adds to the replayability of the game. Like, for example, in the Ricco Harbor mission, the cage shines bright. I could get up on the boat, go up these bars with the bloopers on it, jump on the trampolines, and then get the shine sprite, right? Or, you know, I could just do this. So, thanks Mario. Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time was like the holy grail of video games when I was a kid. This game gives off so much aura that I low-key felt unworthy to play it. Most of my experience engaging with it was actually watching my sister play it. She absolutely played this game to death, and every time she played, I'd be sitting right there watching. And this was before Let's Plays or YouTube even really existed. It was like sitting next to I don't know, like Markiplier or something. I remember when I actually played it for the first time, I was so excited that my sister let me borrow her N64. It boots up to this sick-ass title screen, and mind you, I'd really only watched her play like the later portions of the game at this point, or at least that's all I remembered. So I hit play, input my name, and wow. There I am. Wait, huh? Why am I some dumbass kid? I'm supposed to be the cool guy from the title screen, I said, being some dumbass kid. I think it's obvious that this game is all about transformation and growth. You start off, like I said, as some dumbass kid not knowing shit, and then suddenly you're like the hero, and you have to save the entire realm from being destroyed by this one evil guy, but oh wait, you're 5 inches tall, and he's tall, dark, and handsome. It's through your efforts assisting the people of Hyrule that you learn enough and become capable enough to do it on your own when you travel to the future. And in that future, all these places that were once densely populated with people are now desecrated and picked over by bokoblins looking to resell shit on StockX. Taking on the kinds of challenges that isolate you are really scary. The comfort of being an ignorant kid makes everything so magical as opposed to being scary. I think that's why looking back on this game as an adult, those childhood experiences become so special. Especially because I never even fucking made it to the point where you can turn into adult Link as a kid. I always stopped at Jabu Jabu. All me and my homies hate that hungry ass whale.
They'll pay for this.
I think every generation has a few games that come out that everyone acknowledges is kind of shitty and embarrassing in a lot of ways, but we still love them for some reason, right? With this new generation, it's games like Fortnite and Among Us. For the generation before that, it's probably like Five Nights at Freddy's. A few more years back to my generation, and we have Kingdom Hearts, which is definitely one of those types of games.
How will you fight without a weapon?
I know now I don't need the Keyblade. I've got a better weapon. My heart.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
There's something so cringe yet also very cool about Kingdom Hearts. All of the clean-cut and cartoony Disney aesthetics are reinterpreted through the stylish lens of director Tetsuya Nomura, who's responsible for cool shit like Final Fantasy VII and Parasite Eve. So things end up looking very cool but also very corny at the same time. Like back in the day, this is the type of shit you'd probably get bullied for. The game focuses on this anime boy named Sora visiting different Disney-themed worlds. Things like Alice in Wonderland, Tarzan, and Hercules. As the game unfolds, you get to see all the classic Disney villains team up with each other to undertake some random plan that never really gets directly spelled out for us. The series is very famous for being convoluted and making no sense at all, but it manages to get along by using two X factors: the stylish Nomura flair that we were talking about earlier, and something else I like to refer to as, hey look, it's a thing I know. We're gonna see that in a lot of games today. Every time the game is kind of losing you, they just show you another thing or character that you're familiar with, and the bad feels just kind of wash away. That's what I mean when I said that Kingdom Hearts is one of those good bad games. Every time the game starts to get bad and corny, something good and cool happens and you kind of just forget all about the other stuff. I think another thing that helps this game stand the test of time is the soundtrack. Shit is straight up magical. The orchestral arrangements will have you on the edge of your seat. Or reaching for those tissues. I still remember the feeling I got when I saw the opening to Kingdom Hearts 2 for the first time. There's something ethereal about that opening, man. Shouts out to Hikaru Utada for carrying Kingdom Hearts on her back. In the same way that Little Big Planet is a subtle flag that someone is a PlayStation enjoyer, Pikmin is a dog whistle that you're 100% a Nintendo head. Pikmin 2 was probably the most obscure game that I was into growing up. I feel like the only 3 people that played it within a 100-mile radius of my childhood home were me and my 2 friends who would never stop talking about it. It's kind of weird because I think Pikmin 2 is probably one of, if not the highest quality game on this list. It's possible that the game concept is too far removed from any other normal game, like Mario or GTA that people just don't connect with it. That being said, it's super likely that you also have never played this game either, and I'm just talking to a wall right now. So for the uninitiated, Pikmin is a game where you crash land on a post-apocalyptic planet, which is probably Earth, and you control little plant guys called Pikmin to collect valuable items hidden throughout the game. The unique twist of the game is that your player character is shorter than a literal penny. A trope like this gives you a true sense of scale and allows for emphasis to be put on mundane settings and objectives that you would normally gloss over in other games. The same kind of vibe can be found in series like Katamari and Chibi Robo, which I also love. I do think though that this theme really connects players with the feeling of childhood wonder. Shit that is so regular to adults from overexposure always seems so special to kids. Walking into a forest and looking at all the ants crawling around, the harsh change in feeling you get from season to season, the shininess of a bottle cap you find on the floor. I don't have a kid, but I do have a dog, and any parent will tell you that kids and dogs will probably play more with trash than any toy you will ever buy them. And I think that magic, you know, the kind of magic that you find in something new and interesting, especially when you feel as though you discovered it on your own, that's the magic that Pikmin 2 taps into. Other than that, man, the game is really solid, and again, as a kid, I barely even got through any of this game because I was shit at games back then. But if you take anything away from this video, please go play Pikmin 2. I think it's like $15 on the Switch digitally, or you can research how to play it on other platforms like the GameCube or the GameCube.
Super Smash Brothers Melee!
Super Smash Bros. Melee, or Melee for short, like a lot of other games on the GameCube, was the second major entry into its series, which is kind of crazy because the jump in quality from Smash 64 to Melee was honestly kind of insane. Melee is a 2D platform fighter featuring all of Nintendo's most popular characters from the game's era. Mario, Link, Pikachu, Donkey Kong, Kirby, even some of the characters that were really unknown to a lot of audiences got added to the game. The goal of the game is contrary to other fighting games. Instead of the health bar going down to eventually reach zero, your characters have a percentage that goes up for each hit they receive. The higher the percentage, the further the knockback you receive. Once your characters hit out of the edge of the screen, you are done. Out of all the games in this list, I think Melee is the only game that continues to receive daily play and online discourse. And it's no wonder because the game has a truly electric energy. Playing this game and even watching gameplay of this game feels very similar to a slap in the face. The director of the game, Masahiro Sakurai, described the speed of all the games in the series, and Melee was far and away the fastest. You can really feel it when you're playing too. In a lot of other fighting games, the movement feels more grounded and true to form, true to martial arts. But in Melee, you side B with Fox and you fucking zoom across the screen. Mario throws a punch and his fist explodes in front of him like a fucking cannon. Melee was definitely one of the OG fighting games to legit feel like anime battles. And I think that infectious electricity is part of what made the game so popular. I have always been obsessed with fighting games, and I'd always be asking people to play them with me growing up. Do you want to play Mortal Kombat 9? No. Do you want to play Street Fighter X Tekken? Definitely not. You want to play PlayStation All-Star Brawl? The one that always got a yes was Melee, no doubt. Something Melee had that also not a lot of other fighting games had was unique single-player content. Nowadays, I think online multiplayer has kind of killed the idea of single-player content in fighting games. Why play against CPUs when you could just grind out rank matches, right? Well, I think the single-player content in Melee is actually pretty good. Adventure mode specifically was my favorite growing up, and it's something that could really only exist in a game like Smash Bros. The basis of adventure mode is that you go through all of these 2D platforming levels from each of the fighters' games, and there's all these secrets and interesting ways that the game pushes you to interact with its engine that you would never get in a regular match against someone. There are so many other things I could gush about with this game, like the trophies and unlockables, but I'll cover it in another Smash Bros. Focus video. I gotta get to the real big boy games.
Street Fighter 4!
I don't think you guys heard him. Let's run that back.
Ultra Street Fighter 4!
Street Fighter 4 was my first big boy fighting game. Whereas a lot of people question the validity of Smash Bros. As a fighting game, Street Fighter is unquestionably allowed in the club. and hell, it may have even created the club. The problem with Street Fighter IV is that it's arguably one of the most difficult games I had played up until that point in my life. The level of execution that you need to play that game at a base level, I feel, is much higher than most other games in this list. Like, in the scope of all of the main Street Fighter games, I would say that 4 is probably the hardest next to 3, and this is mostly because of something called frame data. In most games, and especially most fighting games, you play at 60 frames per second. Actions within fighting games are so quick, but also so important, that they're actually measured by the amount of frames that they take up. And most fighting games that you play also have a buffer, which is a window of frames in which the game accepts an input to continue a combo from one hit to another. Basically, it means how easy it is for you to string together inputs for combos, or at least how forgivable the game is about the timing of those inputs. All of this to say that Street Fighter IV has probably the smallest frame buffer of any Street Fighter game. This means that for a lot of newbies, like I was, you end up doing a lot of single hits. Even when you know the button inputs for the combos, you could be missing the small frame windows, which means you'll either drop the combo or it'll never come out in the first place. To put in perspective how difficult the game is, one of the most common techniques at a high level is something called a one-frame link. These are basically combos that at some point require you to press the next button in the combo within 1 frame or 1/60th of a second. Of course, when I was a young boy at the ripe age of 10, it would have taken an act of God for me to understand half of the things I just explained to you. So for me, since I was trash at the game, Street Fighter was always about seeing the cool-ass characters do cool-ass moves. Street Fighter IV was a lot like Smash Melee in that it represented a big jump in graphical fidelity for the series. Before Street Fighter IV, these characters were still moving around in pixel art. Obviously, Street Fighter III remains as beautiful as ever, but as a kid, the visuals of Street Fighter IV really caught my eye. I mean, look at the fucking character designs, bro. Juri is like this cool-ass alien-looking supervillain with wild kicks that shoot energy all over the screen. Sagat is this giant beast with an eye patch, and he throws the quickest aerial knees you've ever seen. Akuma looks as scary as he ever has in this game. And just look at Seth, bro. Like, tell me that's not the coolest shit you've ever fucking seen. I think part of what really made me love Street Fighter IV growing up was it being one of the first games I watched competitive play of. Getting to see the characters that I thought were so amazing do all the crazy moves that I was never able to pull off was like watching anime battles. I remember one of the first matches I ever saw was from EVO 2013, South Korea's Infiltration versus Puerto Rico's PR Balrog. Infiltration was the returning champ from the previous year's EVO, and PR Balrog had been on fire, placing highly in every tournament that he played at in 2013. The setting is losers semifinals. If either player loses the best of 5 set, they no longer have a shot at winning first place, a grand prize of nearly $6,000. The first game starts, and the two fighters go at it blow for blow. Infiltration's Akuma is solid, but PRB's Balrog has the matchup advantage. The scales are tipped in PR Balrog's favor, and yet Infiltration manages to edge out the first game.
Oh, and that's the pursuit. That's why he burned that meter. He threw the fireball and focus canceled it.
1 point to Infiltration. Suddenly, between games, something clicks and the homeboy PR Balrog locks the fuck in. He starts playing super aggro, and you can tell just by the placement of the characters on the screen. Infiltration's back is constantly against the wall, and PRB takes 4 straight rounds in a row, 2 points to PR Balrog. Okay, so now we're at match point. If Infiltration slips up, he's out of the tournament. In a moment of extreme pressure, he makes the decision to switch out from Akuma, his main, to Hakan, a character who is considered by many to be the worst in the entire game. The one caveat is that Hakan is a direct counter to Balrog. Knowing this, the commentators and the entire crowd charge up with electric excitement.
Infiltration, I was just about to say, might be able to go to Hakan. Hakan is a hard counter to Balrog.
This is a very, very tough fight for Balrog. Not one you have to face very often. The crowd is on their feet. They're swooning from this.
Not only does Infiltration have to even the score with a character that he doesn't even regularly play, but he has to win twice in a row to be safe from elimination. So what does he do? Well, let's find out.
Just firing away, and he lands it. Wow. Wow, he bet the farm on that one.
Oh wait, but he's not oiled. Oh, but it's still enough.
Dead.
Infiltration in a very bad position here. Gotta figure out a way to do it. He gets it with the jump strong into the slide juggle.
Very hard to see coming. Oh no, no!
Oh, what a grab from Infiltration!
That was an Infiltration set play. He had that queued up. PR Balrog lives. Oh, and eats it right in the nose. And we are going to the final round. Oh, the focus stuff, very risky against it. Oh no!
Tried it! Okay, damage here.
Infiltration. He's threatening.
Focus,
Backdash.
backdash. Wow, so risky.
Just out of range. Oh, trying to bait it out. Whoa, crazy stuff from Pierre Ballard, gets away with it. Living to fight another day, but looking a little bit zany. Goes for the overhead. Great block. That could be it. That is it. Infiltration with a con, knocking out Pierre Ballard. Incredible stuff. Amazing counter pick.
Now, how can you not be into Street Fighter after all of that? Or even fighting games in general? I bet you forgot this was a video about my childhood games.
Marvel vs. Capcom 3.
Marvel vs. Capcom 3 was like my ultimate dream. Around the time the game came out, my sister used to pick me up from middle school about once or twice a week. Most often we'd go to GameStop or get some Chinese food, but on some lucky afternoons we'd make it all the way out to a place that has long since been forgotten, a mythical place called the local mall. Now, a lot of people watching this video probably can't relate to this anymore, but back before the explosion in popularity of smartphones, the mall was a place that people actually went to hang out after school. Walking around and seeing a bunch of people around your demographic in the same space was truly a cool and unique experience. Whenever we got the chance to slide through, my go-to shop of choice was definitely Coliseum of Comics. This is because I was high-key Spider-Man obsessed. I had Spider-Man games, I watched the Spider-Man movies, my bedsheets were Spider-Man, my room lamp was Spider-Man, my mom made the fucking New York City skyline out of construction paper on my wall. You bet your ass if I was making it to the mall, I was there to get some Spider-Man comics. And that's essentially what I did. My sister would buy me a comic or a manga and I'd end up reading it front to back 10 times over until I was able to get another issue. That's why it almost feels like fate that Marvel 3 came out when it did. It combined both my lifelong obsession with comics and my newfound obsession for Street Fighter. So on that fateful day when the IGN YouTube channel dropped the Marvel 3 trailer, it changed my whole world. They got a game with Spider-Man and Ryu in it? Yeah, sign me the fuck up. Marvel vs. Capcom marks another new type of fighting game that we haven't covered yet. We saw Smash Melee, a platform fighter, Street Fighter IV, which is a 2D fighter, and now Marvel 3, which is something called a tag team fighter. A tag team fighter is something very reminiscent of a 2D fighter in terms of movement and presentation, but the main mechanic is that you have more than one character that you control at a time. In the case of MVC 3, you control 3 characters that you can tag in and out to do crazy off-the-wall combos, stuff that you'd never see in something like Street Fighter. In my opinion, that uniqueness is core to the direction of Marvel 3. Even when you're invested in the games and comics on display, often you'll find oddball characters that you'd never usually have heard of. There's no other game where you'd see the likes of Phoenix Wright, Nemesis, and Mike Hager face off against MODOK, Dormammu, and Shumagora. The presentation in this game is also just 10 out of 10 chef's kiss material. Everything's centered around this comic book aesthetic that straight up works so well for all the characters. The way they did the shading of the low light values plays true to the way most Marvel comics do their inking, and it just looks so right. Double chef's kiss. All of the embellishments are also perfectly tailored to the comic book vibe as well. The title screen is like the cover of a big crossover event, with all the characters doing dynamic action poses. The menus are literally double spread comic book pages, and the character select screen is an open comic book. On top of all that, the combos in this game are fucking gas. Even just doing the combo challenges that the game gives you, they look so saucy. When pros like Justin Wong get their hands on the characters, you truly get to see the beauty of this game. It's like the characters are literal fireworks, exploding colors and fantastical effects from end to end of the screen.
Only the ultimate nullifier would give me pause. Cosmos, the goddess of harmony. Chaos, the god of discord. Cosmos and Chaos were of equal strength. It was believed the conflict would last forever, but
As I've mentioned countless times before, being a younger sibling made a huge influence on my game taste. If there was something my older sister enjoyed, there was a really high chance that I would like it too. Mostly because I've always had a respect for her taste, but also because if she buys the game first, then that means I get to play for free. The one sore spot that I always faced with this trend though is the fact that my sister loved JRPGs, most notably ones from a series called Final Fantasy, whether it be Final Fantasy 7, 10, 12, 13, Dirge of Cerberus, and the list goes on. I had a strong fascination with the series and loved to watch her play the games. When I went to play the games for myself, however, I always came away confused and bored as hell. The cold truth is that Final Fantasy games and pretty much every other JRPG are not made for little boys with zero attention span. So there I was, defeated for many years by these gorgeous games and my inattentive brain tag teaming me like they're playing Marvel 3, until one fateful day. Yo, they just announced they're making a fighting game with all the Final Fantasy characters in it. Dissidia was the solution to my everlasting problem. It was the perfect marriage of the JRPGs I was incapable of playing and the fighting games that I was fully comfortable with, and I think its approach to this concept is actually a very unique one that I haven't seen replicated really ever since its release. For those unfamiliar with the gameplay tropes of Final Fantasy and many other JRPGs, you typically play as a party of characters with varying classes that each have their own statistics and abilities that make up their own strengths and weaknesses. White mage, fighter, warrior, black mage, there's a shit ton more, but those are like the basic ones. For the majority of the games in the series, you engage in turn-based combat in which you make a move and then your opponent makes a move. On your turn, you're given the option to attack, use magic, use items, or flee. Again, the systems are much deeper than this, but we only have time to cover the basics. Please spare me, Final Fantasy fans. Dissidia took these concepts and mashed them together to make a very unique combat system. The main objective in Dissidia is to build up this number at the bottom of the screen with brave attacks, and then unleash that number as damage to your opponent with HP attacks. See, brave attacks are fast and easy to land on your opponent, but only serve to increase the damage you will eventually do. And HP attacks are slower and more telegraphed, but they're the only way to deal actual damage. This system mimics the way that battles play out, especially in early Final Fantasy games. You often have to sacrifice one of your opportunities to deal damage in order to buff yourself for later in the fight. A big part of the game in Dissidia is deciding whether or not you should use each advantage that you have to unleash all of your built-up bravery, or pile up the number as high as physically possible to max out your HP attack to damage ratio. This is so apparent to the point that sometimes the in-game fights can feel like turn-based encounters. Dissidia also has many other features based around its JRPG origins. Because the game is mostly single player, each of your characters has their own levels and equipment. This includes not only items like headgear and armor, but also attacks from an ever-expanding moveset. This amount of customization really does emulate that personalized experience that you get from every Final Fantasy game. It also wouldn't be a Final Fantasy game without an amazing story. Each of the hero characters has a chapter of the story mode that follows their quest as agents of Cosmos, the goddess of harmony. Across the story, you find extremely interesting and unlikely encounters with both friends and foes alike. The story actually reminds me a lot of Avengers Infinity War, where you see all these beloved characters in a massive crossover event, interacting in ways you'd never expect. And if there ever was a villain to rival Thanos, it'd be this game's final boss, the God of Discord, Chaos. It's really hard to find something that I hate about this game. Out of all the individual games on this list, I probably put the most hours into this one as a kid. Trying to max out all my characters to level 100, that shit took forever. In the life of a 3D fighting game player, there are 3 paths. The right path, the horny path, and the path that you choose when you see Link from Legend of Zelda on the cover. SoulCalibur II, the premier 3D fighting game of the GameCube, came at a time where the industry was in the later stages of transitioning from this to this. I'd say that this game over most others from its era has a strong arcade touch. This isn't something that you'd notice unless you've been to an arcade or have played arcade games, but this game really has arcade culture infused into its DNA. The first thing you see when you open up SoulCalibur II is the opening cinematic, one of the best in the business for sure. After that, the game boots up to the title screen as any game does, but then we see something that is very specific to fighting games born out of the arcade era. Demo reels are the type of thing that get displayed when the game is left on the title screen for a long period of time. In an arcade, each game cabinet is fighting for your attention to intake quarters and get played. Normally it would be sufficient enough for a game to just loop the opening cinematic, but SoulCalibur II goes the extra mile of showing computer matches so you can see the gameplay and custom-made character exhibitions. These exhibitions are a fun way to show off the kinds of things that characters can do while also being very culture enriching. Earlier I was talking about how Super Smash Bros. Melee uses the aesthetics of its characters to its advantage to create explosive and exaggerated fighting dynamics, and how more grounded martial arts oriented titles do not have this luxury. SoulCalibur II takes this aspect of its game's world, its realism, and leans into it very gracefully. Unlike other fighting games, SoulCalibur II has a sole focus on armed combat. Each character is something of a personified version of the weapon that they use. Keelik, an honest and straightforward monk, uses a bow staff, which is equally as honest and straightforward. What you see is what you get. Raphael, the French noble, uses a rapier, a weapon crafted specifically for one-on-one duels. His cocky attitude matches his outwardly thrust sword, inviting you to meet his challenge. These are the types of personalities that you see shine through on these character exhibitions. And it's because they mimic martial arts demonstrations so closely that the exhibitions also strongly communicate the idea that the fights you take part in are a lot more similar to real martial arts than your traditional fighting game. Despite how much I love it, a game like Street Fighter kinda asks you to suspend your disbelief and forget that the characters exist in a world with a Z-axis. SoulCalibur was one of the first 3D fighting game series to truly champion the realistic battle feeling that you get from fighting in a three-dimensional space. In the game, you can go forward, backward, up, down, and any way in between. This experience is definitely enhanced by the amazing stages in the game. Somehow each stage in SoulCalibur II manages to be beautiful and feel totally connected to the characters and world while also being incredibly functional. Characters that favor close quarters combat like Maxi, who uses nunchucks, want to fight on small stages with walls like the caged version of Lakeside Coliseum. In stages like these, it's easier to maintain combos by bouncing enemies off the wall, and you can ensure that your enemy won't run from you because really there's nowhere to go. Other characters like the axe-wielding Astaroth prefer big stages with open pits, like Huangso Palace's Phoenix Court. On a stage like this, it's easy to keep your distance and go for an easy ring out for an instant win. This game also has quite possibly the best narration of any fighting game period. The voiceover from Cosmo Lukrich is strong and commanding, with lines that have a nostalgic vibe that strongly calls to the days of the arcade.
With an iron will, he travels his own path. He plunges headfirst into the vortex of destiny.
Once there was an ugly barnacle. He was so ugly that everyone died.
I love the balance his voice strikes between the fantastical whimsy a game like SoulCalibur II appeals to, while also sounding like a history documentary, an aesthetic which the game series routinely likes to commit to. Beyond everything we've talked about, Dragon Ball Z was easily my biggest childhood obsession. Yes, even more than Spider-Man. I had the orange DVD box set of the Saiyan saga, and it had this feature called Marathon Mode, where it basically just plays all the episodes on disc back to back. I would just sit there and rewatch those DVDs over and over and over and over. If you're paying attention, then you might have figured out at this point that I like video games, and Dragon Ball probably has more games than all the other series in this video combined. And as proof of my hyperfixation, let me list off all the Dragon Ball games my sister and I had growing up. There was Dragon Ball Origins, Dragon Ball GT Final Bout, Dragon Ball Z Budokai, Budokai 2, Budokai 3, Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi, known in Japan as Sparking, Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 2, Budokai Tenkaichi 3, and Dragon Ball Z Infinite World. Yeah. Oh shit, there's another page. Dragon Ball Z Burst Limit, Raging Blast, Super Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Z Shin Budokai Another Road for the PSP, Legacy of Goku 2, Dragon Ball Z Sagas, and Dragon Ball Z Taiketsu. I don't really like that last one. Needless to say, it's clear that Dragon Ball was pretty prevalent in my everyday life. If I had to pick a favorite of these, or rather my 6 favorites, I'd definitely go with the Budokai series and the Budokai Tenkaichi series. For the sake of not confusing anyone, we're gonna call the Budokai Tenkaichi games Sparking, which is the Japanese name for the games. Up until Budokai 1, Dragon Ball games typically looked like this, or like this. This game was the first time we got hit with the full power of Dragon Ball iconography. I felt about this game how I felt when I first saw Dragon Ball FighterZ.
Oh, that's so clean!
The characters look so much like how you imagine them from the show, and all the flashiness is on full display. The Budokai trilogy is what I would describe as something sort of like Dragon Ball Tekken. Same 3D setup, there's sidestepping, grabs, a punch, and a kick button. You would think that'd be enough to pass these on as full games, considering a lot of the previous games just had an arcade mode. But a big thing Budokai introduced to the wider DBZ series is story mode. Each of the 3 games has a unique take on the idea. Budokai 1 is like a cinematic gauntlet, Budokai 2 makes you play a board game, and Budokai 3 introduces Dragon Universe, a mode where you hover over Earth and explore it for a story with branching pathways and surprise optional battles. It's kind of like Dragon Ball GTA. These modes really emulated that feeling of watching Dragon Ball on repeat like I used to, but now with the added benefit of me being the one doing the fighting. Now, the Sparking games are different. The Sparking trilogy is like taking the Budokai trilogy and then injecting it with 10 doses of Broly boost. Whereas Budokai is good at representing early Dragon Ball and those more grounded battles, like Goku vs Vegeta, Sparking perfectly emulates the hype of the later off-the-wall shit from Dragon Ball Z. And if you've played any of the Sparking games, you know the real attraction, the character rosters. Those games that we were talking about before, especially the earliest ones, had max like 8 or 10 characters. Even Budokai 1, which was a massive step up, only had 21 characters. I want you to pause this video right now and guess, Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3, a game that came out in 2007, how many characters do you think the game has?
No more waiting! No! It's only been 30 minutes!
161 characters. That's fucking insane. To say that Dragon Ball fans ravaged this game would be an understatement. It was pretty much the gold standard game that every subsequent Dragon Ball game got compared to, until like Xenoverse 2 or FighterZ. Well, that was a little portal into my childhood and the games that I used to play. Are there any games that I talked about that you used to play? I hope I was able to capture even a little bit of the feelings that you might have had for them. For all of you out there who maybe saw something new or found yourself interested in one of the things I talked about, please go do yourself a favor and check the games out. Above all else, I want these videos and this YouTube channel to be a way to get people excited about playing games, especially ones that they may have never even heard of before. And for all of you nerds out there that want homework, let me know in the comments if there's a game that was super important to you as a kid. And please subscribe to catch whenever I upload next. I promise I won't only talk about fighting games. Okay, bye bye.